Upchurch back to tell you another part of the Upchurch story, and it has to do with how I came to start the Upchurch Bulletin. You know, I started my research and interest really back in the early 1950s, but then I got quite serious in the early 1970s, and by 1979 I was ready to start the Upchurch Bulletin. Let me mention to you why this is so important. It is a fact that most people who collect family histories end up with having them in the dustbin because someplace they pass it along to their children or their grandchildren. Pretty soon no one knows what all that old dusty stuff in the trunk is about, and it gets thrown out. Well, I wanted my stuff not to be thrown out, so I created the Upchurch Bulletin. And I deposited it in a number of libraries, and we had quite a few subscribers, so the word of the Upchurch Bulletin has spread around, and I'm now in my 33rd year of publishing the Upchurch Bulletin, and I hold a copy of the first edition in my hands. I'd like to walk through this just a little bit to tell you how it's organized, because for 33 years I've used the same organization, so anyone who picks up the Upchurch Bulletin, they say, oh, this is very similar to what I've had before. So I'll just run through the categories and make a few comments about the different chapters I have in each Upchurch Bulletin. The first thing is always from the editor. I tell people a little bit about what I've been doing, and my wife and my family have been doing since the last Upchurch Bulletin. Trips we've made, this, that, or the other. And I try not to get too boring, but quite a few people have said it's like receiving a letter from home. So I've always felt encouraged to tell a little bit about the farm and what we're doing and what I was doing in my professional life, but especially what I was doing in family history. Then I wasn't very sophisticated, but from the very beginning I thought we should have a photograph. So section 2 was always the photograph, and this first issue of the bulletin I published a picture of the little Gidding church, and that had a certain relationship to our family, which I'll not go into in detail here. But I always tried to include one photograph in each bulletin, sometimes more than that. Then we had the Register of American Ancestors, and in fact that appeared on the even numbered pages of each bulletin. And each bulletin normally consisted of 40 pages, of which 20 pages were simply a listing of the upchurches I had discovered and linked together, and I called it the Registry of American Ancestors. And I listed them by number. The first person I identified was, I called XID1, the second one XID2, and so on. And there's more substance to this that you can learn by looking at other Upchurch bulletins. But let me tell you a thing that was a little bit of a surprise after 33 years. I wrote in this first bulletin this idea that I thought that in this second paragraph in the first bulletin, I said there must be at least 20,000 of these people in America, and the total might be as high as 40,000. But friends and neighbors, as of this year, 33 years later, I have already published on 60,000 members of the family. And I would estimate there are maybe as many as 1 million of us that have some kind of Upchurch connection in America. Of course, not all bearing the Upchurch name. Well, the next item on the list was colonial America and the Upchurch family. I tried to reach back to the colonial period, that is from the early 1600s to the late 1770s, and tell some story about Upchurches that were in existence in America at that time. And then I came to Upchurch clans in America. Now I divided the Upchurch family into 22 clans, each headed by a member of the 5th generation of the family who lived about the time of the Revolution. And in each bulletin I would have this section on the clans, and so you might forward your clan there. And I told stories there about who I'd heard from, what kind of new information we'd gotten on that particular clan. And that's why I've stressed over and over again, it's important for those of you who are interested in Upchurch family heritage to get to know which clan you belong to. The next item was an outline of selected clans. I would take a particular clan and list the outline for that. The next item was batch records, and in this case, the issue I produced the census records for Chatham County, North Carolina from 1800 to 1840. And each issue then contained its own aspect of batch records. Then I had a section on missing links, because it's always a challenge when you recognize that some part of your family and you don't know who that person's father was or mother. And so I published what I call missing links, and often people would write back to me when they get the bulletin and say, oh, I know the answer to that, or sometimes I would later find it. But we still have a lot of missing links to consider even today. And finally, there was reference materials. And in this particular bulletin, I reviewed the two outstanding Upchurch books in existence as of that time, and I also included the will of a Revolutionary War soldier, Nathan Upchurch. And the final item was England. And in this case, I published Upchurches in London in 1978. I happened to be over there and noticed in the phone book, Upchurches listed. So I have here in this edition the actual list of those people. Now, I tended to publish for about the first 20 years 4 issues of the Upchurch Bulletin per year, and then I cut back to 2, and finally, in my mature years, to 1. But along the way, because we got so much information on our ancestors and our family in England, I came up with the idea of having another bulletin, which I published for 4 years, from 1996 to 1999, and this I called Englandia. And Englandia included, in these 4 years, where I published 2 issues per year, specific information about our family in England. Now, before that time and afterwards, I included the English information in the Upchurch Bulletin. But you might be interested as to how I came by the name of Englandia. I mused and mused about this, and I finally came up with the idea that I really appreciated the musical piece entitled Finlandia. It's a very popular piece, and I played with words, and it is from Finlandia that I created the name Englandia, which is about the Upchurch family in this bulletin. Now, in terms of any other specific items in here, I could comment about any one of them and talk to you about them and tell you more details, but I think you need to get your hands on copies of the Upchurch Bulletin one way or another. Now, the thing we have found out over the years is there's much more that we can put in these bulletins. So in recent years, last year or so, cousin Tom Upchurch from Georgia and I have begun to figure out how can we spread the word more widely. So now we have a website up and running, and we are producing these videos, and in fact we're exploring how to put the Upchurch Bulletin online. And we've had to redesign it a little bit, so the current issue in 2012 is especially written and designed to be electronic all the way, and we hope we will be able to post this online one way or another, and that will serve as an illustration. Now, if we had tons of money, we could get all those others online too, but that's another story to tell at another time.